You've only got.
So once again, welcome from the Making Waves Foundation to this tonight's presentation. I'm going to first start off by acknowledging that the Making Waves Foundation practices and sails on land that belongs to Indigenous people. And so we acknowledge and pay our respects to all Indigenous people across Australia and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. So let me introduce our fantastic presenters for this evening. We have Wendy and Campbell. How did they meet? So they met back in 2002 at TAFE while they were doing their commercial ticket, their coxswains. And Wendy was sailing on Campbell's dad's boat in the CYC Spinnaker races. In 2018, Wendy became the first ever female skipper to win an around the world yacht race, which is a huge, huge achievement for her and for all women, actually. When she led her crew on Sanya Serenity Coast to win the 2017-18 Clipper round the world yacht race. She has raced in 13 Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Races and has not been off the podium in the last 6 races. In 2019, she was guest skipper on Maiden as she sailed around the world raising awareness to the plight of 130 million girls who do not have access to an education. With over 200,000 nautical miles under her belt, she's an extremely experienced ocean racer with a passion for racing and a deep love of our oceans. Wendy is now working for the Making Waves Foundation and will use her racing to raise awareness for the foundation, which we really appreciate. Campbell started his sailing as a member of the Youth Academy at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. He has completed 11 Rolex Sydney to Hobart races and 20 Sydney to Gold Coast races. In 2003, he moved to Mallorca, where he ended up captaining a 22-meter Ron Holland yacht. He has since raced on many yachts, most recently a second place in the 2019 Far 40s Nationals. So I am now going to pass over to the incredible Wendy Tuck and Campbell Geeves.
You have to speak louder than that, Wendy.
The host just muted us. Maybe she knows what's in store.
Whoops.
So thank you everyone for coming along, and thank you Campbell for coming over from Bondi all the way to the eastern suburbs in the city.
I love I've travelled all this way for Wendy to tell me her internet's terrible. I'm like, you could have just come to my house and it works.
But yeah, so I guess we're just going to talk about our, I hate saying that word journey, but our path and our adventure to Sydney to Hobart. What, adventure? Path. Adventure. So our story, how we got to Hobart. So do you want to say a few words?
A few words.
Sorry.
I guess we should start at the beginning. Wendy and I did a TAFE course in, you can get an 01 or 02 to get our coxswain certificate. And Wendy was working, had been working for Ansett as a travel agent, true. And suddenly was like, nah, that's not a thing. There's no future at Ansett. And I don't know what I was doing, but we had a great time. And then we did a delivery together, which I think was both our first proper delivery. And
our first offshore delivery.
And then we did our first Hobart together, which was what, 06 did we decide?
2006, yeah.
06, with the twins on Yeah Baby. I've since done, I think, 9 Hobarts with Mark and Louis Rickmans on the on the various Yeah Babies. They've had 3. They've just sold the last one. And interesting, they bought a 2-handed boat, but we'll see how that goes. And then we've obviously been good mates ever since, but we hadn't really sailed together. And then Wendy came out on a winter series race at the CYC with Dad.
In 2020.
Pick a number.
Yeah, it was early, one of the very first winter series races in 2020.
And we gave Dad too many shandies and he agreed to let us borrow the boat for Hobart.
Yeah, so my recollection is we were actually sitting down the back after the race talking about this new formation of 2-handed, which was going to happen for the 2020 Hobart. And that was all because there was going to be hopefully in 2024 Olympics, there was going to be a two-handed class as well. So we're both down the back of the boat going, wouldn't it be awesome to do that? Go to Hobart in 2020. But we need a boat. Have you got any money, Campbell? Can you buy a boat?
I do not have any money.
Me neither. And we were just both actually sitting there going, well, we need a boat. And that's when Campbell's dad said, what about this wonderful vessel that you're sitting on, Speedwell? So that's how we got the boat.
And it's a funny one. I've always had this, I've teased everyone by going, hey, let's go do a Hobart on Speedwell, because I just think it'd be pretty amazing to do it on your own, our family boat. And obviously everyone looks at me like I'm mad because it's 32 feet long and we normally sail on 50 footers. But suddenly it's a viable thing, and we didn't really know how the boat would go. And I had an inkling the boat was pretty quick under IRC, but we'd never raced under IRC. We'd only ever done PHS, which PHS is basically you turn up and eventually they let you win something. Whereas IRC, the boat goes as quick as the boat goes and you win. They presume the boat is at its maximum skills
and
the whole
speed,
time.
and it's got the best sails and everything, and it's optimised for IRC racing.
IRC tends to be won by wealthy, middle-aged, 7-year-old white men because they got the money. Here's our wealthy, who's not that wealthy, but it's my dad, who's a bit of a legend, Collin, without whom none of this would have happened.
Yeah, and I don't know how someone does that. So yeah, here's my boat. That how old is Speedwell?
15 years old.
So here's my 15-year-old boat. That's a cruising boat. That's never raced offshore. Never been out in breeze over 30 knots. Here, take it to Hobart, one of the toughest ocean races in the world, and just bring it back to me. I mean, how does someone do that? It always still astounds me of his generosity that he's like, yeah, here, kids, take the toy and please don't break it. And that's pretty much what Collin did, which is just awesome. Yeah.
I will say, in one of the early press releases when we got our first sponsor, I did an interview with someone and we didn't mention him. And he called me up the next day. He's like, I didn't like that article very much. And we were like, why? He's like, you didn't mention your major sponsor. I'm like, it was all about our sponsor. He's like, I'm your major sponsor, you idiot. Which is a fair point, because he really has been, and he has poured, as well as obviously lending us his asset, he bought us a new rudder, which was a major part of it, but he's also put literally hundreds of hours into the boat, helping us prepare it.
Always.
Obviously, he's retired, so he's got nothing better to do. But it's been amazing.
So once we realised it could be a viable action, and we go back to that same old story, how much money have you got? I've got none. Have you got none? And just so, I know most people here are sailors, but just so you've got a bit of a background. So when we did our first budget, so we're taking this boat that's being raced inshore, then to get all the safety equipment, to get a new rudder, to get new sails, we first did a budget at 100 grand, and looking at each other, we haven't got that. It's like, so then we had to do the sponsor call out that we were looking for 100 grand. We didn't tell sponsors that we were going to take anything. So once it was announced that we were doing this two-handed campaign together, we came up with our plan. So we've got this wonderful boat. It's like, look, we've got all this real estate we can try and sell spots for. It's like, but then we have to have a team name. And so we spent an all afternoon in a pub one afternoon working out, let's call it Beneteau Ocean Racing, because people know my name, which I've since realised I hate having my name on clothing because I feel like a bit of a wanker. So that's why we've now gone to Speedwell Ocean Racing. So some of our clothing is branded that. Most of it's now this, which I prefer. And then we did the big sponsorship call, and we were very lucky. We got some really good sponsors. Obviously, we didn't get 100 grand, but we got enough to make us up there to start off with. So
got enough to get going.
We got enough to get going. So first Yachty, which is a yacht brokerage, and Quality Marine Clothing, they came on board and gave us clothes. So even if we get to Hobart, we're going to look really good. But then, as most things happen, sitting down the pub one day, and there's a friend of mine who's got a beautiful wooden boat. I don't know if anyone knows it, Soraya. I met his wife for the first time, who's got this wonderful company called Juju & Co. And she said, well, I'll buy you a spinnaker. So just from having a glass of wine, we weren't even drunk. She gave me she paid $7 to $8 grand to get this spinnaker. And then little bits, we had a fundraiser through Terry Wise at Pacific Sailing School helped us. So we got another 10 or 15 grand that way. So incrementally, we were getting this little tiny bits of money coming in. Tiny bits. We still had a crappy old main.
Can I just say this photo of the Spinnaker is probably my favourite photo. That's just last morning off the Tasmanian coast. Andrea Francolini, who we'll talk about later, took it. It's a fantastic shot there.
It is. So yeah, so we were starting to get really small bits. Then one day after a drunken weekend, I think it was, Campbell texted me with.
A friend of mine's new boyfriend is launching an online website called Optics Trading. And he's like, oh, we'll give you the money. I was talking to him how much a new mainsail would cost. He's like, oh, I can do that. And all he really wanted in exchange was a couple of photos for his website. Little did he realise quite how much coverage and headline space he'd get and how much his logo would get seen. And they were actually scrabbling in the week before Hobart to get the website live because they were getting all these people trying to asking what it was. We were getting people asking what it was, and he's like, I don't actually have a website, but he paid for him. On our second last race, we basically shredded our offshore main, and I ordered a new main without really consulting with anyone, figuring we'd find the money somehow.
I only found that out just now.
Yeah. We didn't have money to pay for it, but it was $9,000, $10,000, and he came to the party and paid for it.
And can I do a little backtrack here?
Yep.
So what happened? We prepped the boat as well as we could for 2020. We were the budget. We only found Optics Trading this year. So in 2020, we would have gone with this old beaten up mainsail that we know would have ripped on the first night now if we had any conditions that we had this year. The boat wasn't ready. We were both really stressed. So when the race was cancelled or canned, we were both really, really disappointed because we'd already put in a lot of hard work and a lot of people had done a lot of hard work for us. We had our fundraiser. We had the riggers come down. Jason Newhouse did a lot of work for really cheap. We had people do a lot of work for us. And then to have the race cancelled, we were just so disappointed that we sort of stepped away from the boat probably for about 2 months and not even thought about anything. Just went, yeah, okay, that's just so disappointing. Whereas hindsight, which is such a wonderful thing, we realise now that if we'd gone to Hobart in that first race, we wouldn't have done a Sydney to Hobart. We would have done a Sydney to Eden if we were lucky.
Or a Sydney Hobart delivery. We wouldn't have raced.
We wouldn't have raced. Our main would have handled it. So, a month, when was it? 2 months before this Hobart, when Alex came up and said, oh, I'll sponsor you, and we got this new main, it was just like, oh my goodness. So our race, we do the Blue Water series before that, our race results were mid-fleet. We were okay. We were doing okay.
6-4-1.
Yeah, okay. We had a 6-4, so 6th and 4.
Then 1.
And then when we had this new mainsail, we did the Cabbage Tree, which our first big hit out in rough seas and gnarly, not gnarly, but not pleasant conditions. With our brand new main, we had a 1. And I think that surprised the pants off the rest of the two-handed fleet because we're racing against new boats, old boats that have had a lot more money thrown at them. And for us to win that race in quite tough conditions, I think everyone took a step back, even us went, holy shit, we just won that. That's quite extraordinary. So, and that came down to having some pretty good sales on board.
And having a far better understanding of how to make the boat go fast.
Yeah.
It's a really big part of it. Also, it turns out Wendy's really good at driving boats offshore, which, I mean,
who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought?
And I'm all right. I'm okay.
Yeah, he's all right. He's really good. Yeah, he's pretty good.
So off we went.
So after that Cabbage Tree, we sort of started getting, which was really good for our sponsors, because I know people might say, oh, you have to have sponsors, that's really bad, you're cheapening sailing. You have to. We couldn't afford to do this without sponsors. And I'm sorry we keep talking about them, but it's what got us to the start line.
We're not sorry.
We're not. That's what got us to the start line, the finish. So then we just started doing what we do really good, our media stuff. We
met the amazing Andrea Francolini, who you've probably seen as the byline to most of the best sailing photos worldwide, really. And he was fantastic. He just volunteered to come out with us for a day and take some photos, including this incredibly cheesy one, which is fantastic, though.
Yeah.
And on-sold them to the Telegraph. He then did some portrait photos of all the two-handed guys. We got a full-page spread in the Australian, which was pretty amazing, with us, our photo being the centre of literally half the page of the Australian.
Yep.
Again, covered in logos on our T-shirts, which we love. You can see there, I've got the Speedwell logo. Wendy's got Wendy Tug Ocean Racing, the one she hates.
Just in case I forget who I was. That's
all. She forgets who she is. But suddenly we became hot property, and everyone wanted to have a chat with us, which was fantastic.
One race.
We won one race.
One race. Anyone wants to talk to us?
We won the important race, the lead up. It's the longest It's the third most important race for the CYC behind Southport and the Hobart.
Yeah,
So,
so
it's
we're
not,
pretty
it's not
happy
to
we
be
did well.
sneezed at.
Yeah. That was
So
good.
here we are a week out from Hobart. You can tell it's been a terrible Sydney summer because none of us are tanned. And Wendy's saying through the side of her mouth, "Stop making jokes. I'm the funny one."
Oh, I'm the funny one. And this banner we have
It's
is
not banner because I'm the funny one.
I'm the funny one.
Yeah.
This is what we're like on board. This is what we're like everywhere. So it's not something we're just putting on. This is like, I don't know what happens the minute we get together. It's just like, I don't know. But I'd just like to point out one fact that not many people know. So
Is that I'm the funny one.
No, I'm the funny one. A lot of people might know me as Wendo. It was actually Campbell that gave me that nickname at TAFE all those years ago, 20 years ago. So I am called Wendo because of Campbell, which he had actually forgotten, but he did that. I'm quite horrified. But anyway, so we're getting ready for Hobart, and there's another aspect of all this two-handed stuff that we haven't touched on yet that's really, really important. All through lockdown, there was the time when we couldn't sail, when you could only go through your 5K, when you couldn't leave your 5K because then we could still sail for 5K, couldn't we?
Yeah.
And
you were going and getting the boat.
Yeah, so what would happen during that 5K lockdown when you could have two people doing a sporting event, I could go over to Balmain where the boat lives on a mooring at the front of Cambo's mum and dad's house. So I could go over and pick the boat up. I could bring it back to the CY. He could just walk down the end or halfway down A arm and jump on the boat because that was still within his 5K.
The
then
end of D arm of the CYC was outside my 5K.
So we could still sail. So we were still out in the harbour. We couldn't go out the Hets because my 5K ended at Watto Bay, I think, which to me was ridiculous because if we're going offshore, but anyway. So we could still sail, so we could still train when it was the 5K. The minute the 10K opened up, we could still keep sailing. But in the meantime, while all this is going on, Campbell started a WhatsApp group with all the other CYC or Sydney two-handed group.
What started Sydney was actually just the competitors of the CYC originally, so it was only 4 boats.
Yeah,
it's now got 37 members in it.
Yeah, so it's huge, and that's what Campbell started. And something that people don't realise, like we get back to the club and have a drink, and it's just us two, and we've been sailing together all day and all night, so we don't want to talk to each other.
And Wendy's only got 4 jokes.
No, exactly. I have a lot more than 4 jokes.
I've heard them all.
No, you've heard them all, but I've got more than 4 jokes. So we started this, Campbell started this WhatsApp group, and we've got this really, really good camaraderie ship. My ex-boss and Campbell's ex-boss, Peter Frankie on Salt Shaker, he's in it. So we've got this really tight group that we're all sharing stuff. And this is what I really like about the two-handed is we share safety stuff. So when that 10K limit then went, we actually did a race. We made our own little pretend race up to Bird Island and back. On the way up, we're just reaching. For you guys at sail, you go up on one tack, come back on the same tack. It's the same up, same back. We both looked at each other, said, do we really need to be out here just reaching up and down the coast in 30 knots of breeze? Let's do some man overboard drills. So we just pulled out the race and radioed the other guys and said, oh, we made up some story about technical details. I don't know.
So our main was falling apart.
Yeah, our main was falling apart. And at that stage, we had to keep it from over. So we did some man overboard drills. Do you want to talk about them? Because I've been talking.
We threw Wendy in the water, and that was it. That was the drill.
Then he obviously.
Then I had to make some decision whether to go and get her or not. We just. The biggest problem with this stuff is as soon as you start thinking about the logistics of falling in the water with one other person, you'd probably never go sailing again if you thought too hard about it. Because if I fall in the water and the spinnaker's up and the autopilot's on, the boat could keep sailing for the next hour and a half before Wendy wakes up and off we go.
I'm just going back 2 slides or a few slides, which where is it? I'm showing
that one from the behind, I reckon, is actually the one.
Sorry, I'm just changing slides here because I want to show you something that's actually it was on the slide we had. Sorry.
Yeah.
You guys can see my cursor, can't you? Bridget, I can see you. Can you nod if you can see my cursor? Yep, cool. So you see this thing around my neck here? That's our auto helm control. So that's on a piece of string around my neck, then a piece of bungee around my chest to keep it located on the front of my chest there. So if Campbell was to fall overboard, whoever's on deck steering has to have that. That was one of the rules that we came up with, and we're so adamant about that you have to have that. Even if we were both on deck and I was going downstairs to cook dinner, which would never happen because I never cooked.
When he never cooks.
Never cooked. I would have to give that to Campbell. So if he fell overboard, he could actually hit that button, and that that is controlling where the boat's going. So that controls our auto helm. So he could send the boat head to wind or just stop the boat, change the wind angle, and the boat would stop, and hopefully I would notice that. So that's what we were counting on, that if someone did fall overboard, that's how you're going to let the person down off watch asleep know that you're in the drink. So that tiny little piece there did become quite important.
The other thing after those drills, we went and bought a man overboard recovery ladder, which is incredibly cumbersome, giant, basically a scramble net that we can launch off the back of the boat, because we figured that if you've got somebody with a broken arm in the water, you're really going to struggle to just pull them out of the water in the back of the boat. But with a big scramble net, you can get a halyard on it. And we really just spent a lot of time talking about the steps we take to try and recover someone. Yeah. But you kind of figure the French solo guys never wear life jackets because they figure once they're in, they're done. Whereas at least we've got one person downstairs that we can shout at.
Yeah, and hopefully
they'll come back up.
So we did do training, and we thought that was more important to do it. Like, obviously, those guys that have been out with me with making waves, we do our man overboard drills on the harbour, and we're doing them in the motor. Now we're going to start doing them under sail, so we know how to do it under sail. And then before the boats go north, we're going to do them offshore as well. So it's a progression. We've done man overboards before. So then when we had 30 knots offshore and a big swell, that's when we thought, well, that's when someone's going to fall over. That's when we need to know how to recover. So we did spend, a bit of time doing that, talking about it, changing it, and figuring out just stay on the boat. So that was probably the biggest scary thing, was just down the boat. And getting back to that camaraderie, that's the sort of information we shared. We told the other guys, via the WhatsApp group, we pulled out the race and we just used it to practice man overboards. And the first thing was, well, what did you do? What did you find? And once we started that conversation, everyone else was flowing in saying, what about this? Have you tried that? We tried this, which I think is really important, which doesn't happen with a lot of fully crewed racing. Our little camaraderie, or our big camaraderie amongst all the two-handers is really quite awesome, which you'll see at the end.
I agree.
And they tried to find their husband and failed. Anyway. So the next question, and guys, please ask questions as we go along.
They're probably asking them up.
There's one question there. If you want
a question. Here we go. Wendy, are you single?
Yes. Anyway, so one of the other questions I get asked a lot is, what do we do about watch systems? Do you want to explain what we do about watch, Mr. Golden Pillow?
So in every offshore race I've ever done, I've won the Golden Pillow because I can fall asleep anywhere. And I'll get up when you need me to get up. The Golden Pillow is awarded to the person that sleeps the most. Actually, the last race I did, we had a guy who slept 12 hours a day, no matter what.
Do that.
It was talented. But we had many discussions about it. But on the Cabbage Tree race, we went into a really nice rhythm where we were sort of sleeping or going down for an hour and a half each, and then switching over, which was working really well to keep us fresh when it was nasty. So we got a 25 to 30 knots subtly, and we were smashing into that for 7 or 8, 9 hours. So we got into a really nice rhythm during that race of down for an hour, pop up, switch over, and just kept rotating rather than two people sitting on deck and subtly just getting smashed. We were sort of getting dry, getting a little bit of rest and then coming back, and that worked really well for us. And again, on that first night of Hobart, when we had much the same conditions, we did the same thing. But here's our very technical watch system. Ollie is the autopilot. Our very good friend, early on before we had an autopilot installed, our good friend Ollie Gill used to come out for us and pretend to be the autopilot while we dropped the spinnaker in the water. Yeah. Which we did a lot of.
No,
early
days. Oh, in the early
days.
Early days.
And so Ollie would stand there and not be allowed to.
He wasn't allowed
to help. He just had to drive in a straight direction, and he just laughed. The watches were simple. Wendy on, Campbell off, Campbell on, Wendy off. The off watch on deck when needed. Ollie's always on or on standby. We didn't actually use the autopilot very much. We just were quicker almost all the time hand driving. But I guess the biggest change with racing 50-footers when you're on one of 3 watches, normally you'd run a 2-hour rotation or two-hour rotation with 2 hours on, 2 hours standby, 2 hours off. For that off watch, you take your life jacket off, you take your wet weather gear off, you get warm and get in the blanket, and you get up and get all dressed up again. I don't think I took my life jacket, certainly didn't come off until the last day when we had 0 breeze. Yeah. We were going to sleep in jackets, sleep in full wet weather gear. simply because the difference between on the very first night, we got a pretty isolated squall of sort of 40 plus knots about 15 minutes after I'd gone down, and Wendy started.
Always asleep. Sorry, I was just
Always
saying, he's always
asleep,
asleep.
always
Always
asleep.
asleep.
I was in my bunk. Wendy goes like, Campbell, come up! Came up and it had gone from a really easily handled 25 knots with one reef in. Suddenly we had 40 knots, and we just smoked the main straight down and kept sailing, and we were completely in control. And I think in that one squall, I reckon would have accounted for half the people that pulled out that first night.
Yeah,
There
easy.
was torn mains, torn sails. Denali snapped in half, obviously, but that's not ideal.
Yeah, and one of the modifications, there's actually 2 modifications that we made that were a big deal for us. We put lazy jacks on the mains so we could just smoke the halyard down and put our reefs in and not have to worry and tie the foot up, because, you know, that's going to waste time and energy. And it's like, do I really want to be spending time on the cabin top putting a sail tie around the foot of the sail? Just smoke it down into the lazy jacks. And when we got that squall, Campbell made the call. He said, let's just get the main down. It's like, yeah, you know what? Let's get the main down. So we had the number 3 up, wasn't it? Was
But the number 3 up and kept it up the whole night.
Yeah, so we had the number 3 up and we still did 7 knots.
We had a number 4 that we never put on.
Yeah.
The other big issue for us, we changed from having, I don't know if this is interesting to anyone, but
Yeah, it is.
we changed from having a double luff system like most race boats have, gone onto a hank system, like proper old school. The simple reason being that if somebody falls overboard on the hank, you just smoke the halyard, the sail falls down, it stays on the boat. On the double luff, the sail falls down and it just goes everywhere.
And you've got to pull it down.
But a sail change on a hank sail is obviously an awful lot harder. You're up front, you can't raise 2 sails at the same time. Yeah, I liked that photo before, actually. Wendy was sitting on the wheel with gloves on, which is pretty much how it went for the entire race.
No, it wasn't.
Didn't let go of the wood the whole time. Just
Captain Arrowtime. I became Captain Arrowtime.
bunk to wheel, bunk to wheel. But yeah, you can in a big seaway, you can lose half an hour changing head sails. So you've really got to think long and hard before you go for a manoeuvre.
Yeah, and look, I'll talk Campbell up there because he won't talk himself up. In our previous races, we had our crappy main. There was a couple of times we had to change the sails, and yeah, we've hanked on sails. It is a bigger job, but he changed the sails a few times and did such an awesome job. There is a way you can do it a little bit quicker than you would think, and he did manage that really, really well and change our sails. But as he said, you've really got to think long and hard about changing head sails on our boat. When we talked to other guys after the race, how many times they changed up and down our head sails, and we're going, oh, well, we kept that up and we kept that down. We just stayed with this. Our head sail changes were a lot more limited compared to other boats, but it worked.
It worked.
For us, it was easy to make main bigger or smaller. And I think a lot quicker and easier. And Campbell mentioned having this bigger rudder that Campbell's dad Collin got for us earlier in this year. We wouldn't have had it pre-2020 Hobart, but we had it for this year because his shares did really well. So we said, I'll buy you the new rudder, which he did. And that made such a huge difference.
He actually thought he considered it safety.
Yeah.
And the boat was built as an IRC Mediterranean boat. So it was really designed to do really well in 10 to 12, under 12 knots, which it does do. But when FAR designed, the best way to think of the boat is as a undersized FAR 40. It's a very similar to that classic FAR hull shape, which is lovely. It's a very beautiful hull shape. But when FAR Design delivered the plan to Beneteau, they went with the smallest rudder, probably because it was cheaper to manufacture. But pretty much all the boats worldwide have rebuilt. It's about 10,000 Aussie to put the new rudder on. So it's not a small investment, and Dad's been putting it off for years, and now he's done it. He can't believe how much better it is. To that end, we'll go race start because we're rabbiting.
Yeah, so we're going to go to race start. So race start that day. That day is pretty huge. Like, we deliberately made ourselves in the pond because the boat, as I said earlier, lives out of mooring over at Balmain. So when we got time, we brought the boat over and left it in the pond at the Seaway. So we're right there, best position. We did that for 2 things because, yes, we had sponsors. We had our sponsors flag up and we wanted to do more programs. So it's like more bang for your buck. which was good and bad because it meant everyone wanted to stop and talk to us, which gets you out of that mindset. Because on race start, you've just got to get into this mindset.
Wendy and I are two of the biggest gossips on the planet.
I'm not a gossip, you are. I'm a chatter. You're a gossip. Anyway, so on race start, we were mic'd up to have a live cross with Channel 7, which I had to go buy a new phone for because my old phone was pretty crap because I smashed the screen and got wet, so I had to go get a new phone. And so I think that was a bit of a distraction. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't do it again because instead of just being race focused, it's like, shit, they're going to ring. Have I got my earpiece in? Am I going to talk to them? I don't think I'd do that again. It was pretty fun. But so I talked to Barrett, which is pretty cool. But I think it took us off our game for our start. And our start the start across the line was okay, but it just went a bit pear-shaped after that, didn't it?
Yeah, well, we don't have to talk about that.
We won't talk about that. If anyone out in the harbour, you might have seen it. Wasn't good. Wasn't our finest moment.
Yeah.
But we moved on from that. So in the end, we got our kite in the water, got it out. And we weren't last out the harbour, but after having a cracking start across the line, it went pear-shaped. And this is the thing with two-handed, you can't hold grudges, you've got to go out, shit happens, let's move on. So we did, didn't we?
We did move on.
And we started sailing out the harbour. So
Jerry's just asked which line we started on. The two-handed started on the back line, the fourth line. Yeah. So we're in everyone's gas, but the person that was least fair to was
Rupert Henry.
Was Rupert Henry in his 40-footer because he's twice the speed of us. Although he did get clear line to start in, but he should have been 3 lines up and was suddenly all the way back in gas. So it is a big disadvantage because you've got a lot of dirty air coming off you and you really do struggle to get out the heads in the bad air.
Is that a Brazilian flag?
No.
Where? No, that's the Rolex flag. I don't see who asked that, but no, it's a Rolex flag on the back of the boat on that second one. That's the Rolex flag. So we all have to fly a Rolex flag.
And my dad still hasn't taken it down.
It's still there. So that's us going out. You know, we pre-start on this one. That's actually after this photo because Campbell had gone down by then. This was going out through the head. So you can see we've still got a bit of breeze on. We've still got a full main up. I think we put a reef in pretty quickly after that. I'll just read this information.
We're reefed in the top photo.
That was Sorry, Marcia, I was just reading your answer.
So bottom photo, we're just coming out the heads. The next photo, we've got the one reef in and I've gone down to sleep because I've been on deck for 25, 30 minutes and I like to
See, golden pillow.
I like to have a break every half an hour. But that's the sail configuration we went through that first night, that number 3. So it's quite a big jib for the boat. We also have an overlapping J2. But yeah, that's the sail configuration. So if you have a look at about the T and the I of optics, that's our second reef. So we probably went to a second reef. We have a third reef we never used. We went from the second reef when the squall hit, we went to nothing at all. And then we went back to 2 reef. And I think we stayed in 2 reef for the rest of the night.
We stayed, probably for the first 30 hours. So that first 30 hours is pretty uncomfortable. I think there was a benefit of being in a smaller boat. We could go up and occasionally fall off a wave, but a lot of the time you could go up and slide down the back of a wave. It was a pretty short, ugly sea. So if you were on a long boat, a bigger boat, like a 50-footer, your aft part of the boat would be on one wave, your front part would be on another wave, and it's just a horrible motion. And that's, as Campbell said earlier, Denelli cracked actually major damage. They were so lucky to get home safely.
They did more than major damage. They snapped in half and they got home.
They're going to get fixed. I
can't believe they're getting fixed.
Yeah, so it just wasn't nice. And so when Campbell came up, we just got the main all the way down, and we're still doing 7 knots upwind, and it's like we don't want any more speed. So speed's not our issue because the trouble is you need to keep speed so you can go up a wave and down. But by this stage, the swell wasn't huge. It was just nasty and short and horrible. It wasn't huge.
But what we had a vague game plan, and again, we were a bit rushed and probably should have done more towards game plan because with 2 of us, so normally I sail on a 50-footer or TP52 or something, you've got a guy sitting downstairs, it's always a guy who's sitting in this little hellhole staring at a computer, running various programs to figure out where to go. Whereas for us, we really had to leave the dock going, we're going to be here, here, and here, and when the wind comes down, we can have another look at it. So we had a plan, which was to get out into the current, and then when we could tack and lay Green Cape, which is the bottom of New South Wales, we should do that, which we pretty much did. Just about. Oh, we did do that, but on that tack back in, we took a pretty bad knock, and we should have gone back out again. Disco Trooper and Crux, who got first and second, went back out again, and they got into bigger current, same breeze, which meant ugly seaway, but they hung out there for about another 30 miles, and they put on, Disco Trooper put 35 miles on us that first night. However, three other boats that were out with them in our fleet, Maverick, I don't even know what the others were called, broke. It was boat breaking conditions out there. Crux and Disco stayed in one piece. I think I said in an interview afterwards, it's not our boat to break. We can't afford to fix it. And I will keep going over whether we should have done the right thing or not for the rest of my life. But we came in, got out of the worst of the ugly seaway, but we did lose. We leaked miles to the two boats that ended up. And the other boat that did really well out of that was Love and War, who got third overall, who was sort of our same speed. They weren't in our race, but they did really well. Yeah, having said that, we woke up the next morning and we were third boat on the water, and we were a long way ahead of some very fast boats.
Yeah, and you've got to. I'll just try and give you a picture of that first night. So we just didn't really talk about the kite in the water. So we got the kite in the water. We knew we were going to be upstairs. Once we got it downstairs, you normally pack the spinnaker straight away, but it was so rough and horrible when we got offshore. It's like, well, we're not going to use this for 5 days. Let's just leave it down below. It's soaking wet. Let's leave it out the bag. So when you go down the companionway, you've got this kite on the floor in front of you. It's rough as horrible. It's just bouncing everywhere. So for the first night, you'd go down below and you just wedge yourself at the bottom of the companionway in between the nav desk and the sink on the other side. This is how tiny the boat is. You can wedge yourself in there, going, okay, if we fall off a wave, I'm not going to bounce anywhere. I'm sleeping here. So we actually slept on that soggy, wet sail for the first night, because at that stage we had these wonderful dreams that, we went to a bunk, you take your wet weather gear off and keep it dry. And after the first night, when it slowly started to come down, it's like, yeah, let's just sleep on the bunks wet. We can dry stuff out later. This ain't going to abate. Let's just sleep there. So it was really uncomfortable. And when we came in, I was off watch. Campbell made the right decision. As he said, it was boat breaking stuff. The first night I'm laying down below, and there's so many creaks because the Beneteau's fitted out down below as a cruising boat. It's got covers, it's got, fridges, and we took the stove out.
Doors.
Doors. And everything is just creaking. And I remember that first night laying there going, shit, I hope a cupboard doesn't fall off the wall and hit me on the head, because that would really screw up our race, wouldn't it, if I'm unconscious and bleeding down here. And that's how noisy it was down below. Everything is just squeaking. It's like IKEA furniture down below. Everything's just squeaking. So when we came back in, it was the right decision. Something was going to give, and it wouldn't have been Campbell or I, it would have been the boat. So that's what we had to do.
I'm still in my dad's will, but I may not have been if I had. Anyhow.
Anyway.
So we woke up the next morning, and we were in close to the next morning or the next afternoon, and we got back into internet range. So a quick word about internet. We're running an Inmarsat Go. Iridium Go, which was great for downloading weather files, but nothing else. It worked really well for us. I was trying to get Expedition working, and I bought a computer that broke.
So Expedition is a software program that tells you your boat speed, where you should go. It looks at the weather, it looks at what your boat can do, it tells you where you should go.
But the big thing about Expedition is it plugs into the boat's computer and instruments, and it extrapolates from that, so it can tell you what's happening now, and it's a really powerful program. I bought a computer to do that on secondhand, and that broke about 2 weeks before Hobart, and I probably spent more time faffing with that I could have been doing other things than anything else, and it became a bit of a pain. Anyhow, we got back into internet and suddenly got the results up on the tracker, and realised though we were behind the two guys that were our way out to sea, we were actually doing really well in our class, and we were ahead of people that really should have been behind us. So
not happy. At the end of the day, we're happy.
We were, at the end of the day, the boat was in one piece. We got through the storm, and we were still talking to each other. The good thing, by the way, about two-handed sailing is it's only ever one of you on deck, so you don't actually have to talk to the other person all that much.
So we carried on sailing. We had some ups and downs. The results, I don't know if anyone followed us, the ups, the down, the results change all the time. So sometimes you're winning, sometimes you're doing crap, sometimes you're doing really good. It's done by your boat speed and all different things it works out. So, we were happy where we were. We would have liked to have stayed up, but we couldn't if we want to get the boat in one piece. And we saw the amount of dropouts after the first 48 hours. It was like, we're still here. We're on a little boat that's never sailed offshore before. We're happy. So we kept going. And then the race just got really quite nice. It actually got really quite nice. I didn't include our Bass Strait crossing, which was really quite
really lovely.
Shorts and t-shirts.
One thing that happened
nice.
to our favour was because we're the second slowest boat in the division as far as the handicap is concerned. So Crux, who had stayed out and were sort of ahead of us, but we were catching them quickly, were the only boat. And we also had a big Beneteau that we never actually laid eyes on that was ahead of us, but we caught him pretty quickly. But then from that position, all we had to do was control the fleet that we were around. So we really didn't, all we had to do was go the same direction as them and stay in touch. So those boats are Rum Rebellion, which is the same as Disco Trooper that won, but they only picked the boat up 2 months before Hobart, so they were learning as they went.
Yeah.
And Salt Shaker, which is Pete Frankie, Wendy you mentioned earlier, he used to be our boss. He has a Sydney 36, so 4 feet bigger than us and a little bit quicker. And Pete,
very good sailor.
And Pete is the most canny sailor I've ever met, but he's not particularly an offshore sailor, but he just goes the right way more often than not. So we were always, I'm always, when we're doing this two-handed stuff, I'm like, where's Pete? And if we're close to Pete, we're probably not in a bad position. And so we were ahead of him. He eventually caught us, but we were close enough that we got him in the long term.
And we were happy that it wasn't a big deal that he physically got in front of us because he had to beat us by so much to beat us on handicap. So we did our Bass Strait crossing, which was really rather pleasant. And then we're sailing down the Tassie coast. And this race was really different to Tassie coast. You had to come in quite close. Normally you stay away from the Tassie coast. You just play it right at the end and come in. But this race, every weather information we got said come in close. So we came in close and we got back close to Rum Jungle by then. And we actually got in front of them. So
Rum Rebellion.
Rum Rebellion. We're coming down the coast here and we're going into shore, coming back out, jibing.
This is when you're looking a boss at the Professional Pavilion
so,
and me in my long underwear.
You in your underwear, yes. So it was really hot. It was lovely. It doesn't look hot there, but it is. It just got hotter and hotter. And we had a really nice day just jibing down the coast. We're both awake for a lot of time, jibing in and out. I'll just give this little caveat of what happened to Rum Rebellion. We watched them. We came in really close to shore. They stayed out. We got in front. Then they said, let's go inshore like they did. And there was more breeze inshore, hence we got in front of them because they should be in front of us physically. They did a jibe, wrapped their spinnaker, and I've just said to Campbell, I think they've ripped their spinnaker. So they actually ripped, the day before we all finished, they ripped their masthead spinnaker, which was really unfortunate for them in the end, which you'll see later. But we just had, it was just such a wonderful day sailing, wasn't it?
It was a really nice day sailing.
Awesome day sailing.
Let's just point out a couple of things on the boat. Back corner got a life sling.
Life sling there.
That's to drag. Little aerial of the
that's our
satellite phone. You've got the tracker there.
That's the tracker.
We got 2 trackers. We couldn't figure out why we got 2 trackers, and it turned out we got 2 trackers because they thought we might have a chance of winning, which was nice.
Oh, okay.
In the here we have this inflatable John Boy. So it goes in the water and it pops. It's water activated and it pops. It's about 3 meters high. On the first night, it got so wet it popped in the bag. Yeah. And if you have a look, it's actually straining to pop out of the bag, and there's nothing we could do about it. It's just sat there, and over the next week, it slowly went down. It's still in my car to go back and get serviced. He's got a life buoy with a light attached. 4-man life raft here. Messy ropes everywhere because there's only 2 of you and you don't have a gopher to clean up after you all the time, which really missed. We're obviously wearing life harnesses all the time. Crotch straps is the bane of my life. I'm of the opinion that when you go in the water, you put the crotch strap on. Wendy totally disagrees. And
this is
right.
The only argument we had. This is the only argument we had. Every time Campbell would come up and his crotch strap is flagging behind him. It's like, Campbell, do your crotch strap up. It's the only argument we had. He's like, I don't need it. It's like, well, your life jacket's going to fall off your head if you fall over. the only argument we had on the boat was
She was
regarding
as
Campbell's
usual.
crutch.
As usual, she was right. She spent a lot of time talking no one. Life rafts there, so we can launch it as quick as we can. There is a little knife attached to the top of it, so we can just slice it off. There's a knife in the back corner by Wendy. We've got knives everywhere.
Yeah.
And the Rolex flag. It's not a Brazilian flag. I'm sorry, buddy.
But it was just getting back to that. So it was just beautiful sailing. And it's really nice to have done, we've probably done 500 miles by that stage, if not more, to have a boat close to us, because we've got a boat in our division that we know has to beat us by quite a few hours across the line to beat us on handicap, and they're behind us. And we're
crossing jives with them.
We were
really
just having a fat time. It was one of the nicest days sailing. We were up and down, go have a rest. At that stage, when it's that windy, so that's looking like about 15, maybe about 15s, maybe a bit more. That's when you need 2 people to jibe. So we steered a lot because sometimes our auto helm will fail, which we'll talk about when we go up with Derwin. So when it's quite windy, we'd actually hand steer. When it's really light, you can use your auto helm, but we did hand steer quite a lot. So
I reckon we hand steered 85%.
Yeah, so come home with guns.
At least 85, 90% of the time.
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to stay on this jibe for a while. That's good. And then you'd have to wake the other person up if you're going to jibe. So you try and work around sleep, but not work around. We did make a deal that if you need to do a tack or a jibe and you need the other person, wake them up. Even if they've only been down for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, we're racing. Sleep is secondary. So we did do that. It's like you'd go to put your head down. It's like, yeah, I need you now. It's like, bugger. So we were racing. We weren't just having a fat time cruising, but that was probably one of the nicest afternoons sailing. And then it led into one of the nicest early evenings, which you can see here. So we're approaching Tasman Light here. You can see we're back close hauled because you can see the main sheet here is pulled in close. So the breeze has gone really quite light now. Beautiful light. It was just beautiful sailing. So, okay, we still had the kite up then, but just trimmed all the way in because it's light. That's easy. So we're going up to shore. Yeah, and it was just beautiful. But
and these photos are not taken in the same time frame.
Yeah, they're not in order, are they? And it was just beautiful sailing. We're having a lovely time. Campbell's really good at taking photos. I'm really crap. And we didn't know how horrible it was going to turn. So we just got some more really pretty shots. So it turns fun. We're very close to Tasman Light here. So we've tacked in. So we are upwind now. We've tacked in. We're tacking back out. We're going to the...
This is Wendy's Tinder profile photo.
So it was just beautiful, but we didn't realise how horrible it was going to turn, and horrible as in the breeze was going to die and we were going to get snookered. Do you want to answer that? So what happened? We're going towards Tasman Light. I was down having a bit of a rest eventually. Thanks, Nick.
Nick Douglas says,
Nick.
hot.
Thanks,
G'day,
Nick. So we've gone to Tasman. We got to Tasman Island just on the sunset, and the breeze has just died. And this is my forever moment. I wasn't quick enough to realise we were in 2 converging breeze, southerly breeze, and then try to go back to the north, and it had gone north, and I didn't click quick enough that it had changed. And what happens, even though you've got instruments on your boat, if the wind's so light and changing so quickly and it's so light, your Windex up the top of the mast isn't going to pick it up. You have to feel it. And as you can see, we've got hats and everything on. So I didn't feel that the wind is actually going around behind us. We can get around here. So there was quite a few times when we nearly hit Tasman Island. The boat, we've got no control of the boat. We've got tide pushing us around. We've got wind trying to push us the other way, and we're getting sucked into Tasman Island. So we needed to tack, and the other thing was just go away and jibe and do a nice big circle and try to keep boat speed on. And it just became horrendous. And we could see the rest of the fleet that we wanted to beat catching up to us. And because we were on that converging breeze, eventually we got round, but when other boats got there, they managed to go through, then we got stuck somewhere else. And it just turned to shit, didn't it? It was horrible.
At this stage, we've got Salt Shakers about 10 miles ahead of us, and they had to stay 10 miles ahead of us. And they're moving inside Storm Bay, but they needed another hour to beat us. And coming down the coast quickly is our friends on Crux. Who
still in that northerly breeze.
Still in the northerly breeze, so tottering along nicely, and we had to beat them by 20 odd hours. So
it was
we just
horrible.
parked.
We
and
parked. We
I'm on the suddenly you've got internet and you're on the tracker watching our friends in front sail away from us and our friends behind sail up to us. And I, about 3 hours into it, I lost it and just probably had a minor meltdown. And Wendy was lovely and told me to go to bed. And the
I think I might have said, get your shit off the deck because
Yeah.
I don't need your bad mood.
I was just ropeable because we'd come so far. We're now 4.5 days into this thing, and we're sleeping, I don't know, 6 hours a day probably.
If that, yeah.
If that. And the noise of the gear slapping as the boat's not
horrible.
moving, it's not something you really will ever get used to. It's really, really loud as the sail just goes bang, 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 because there's just no wind at all. And we got going a couple of times, and we parked a couple of times, and our friends on Rum Rebellion were behind us, and then they sailed past us, and then we sailed past them, and they were also going slightly mad. Then they took off, and they put like 5 miles on us in about half an hour, and we just sat watching them sail away with no wind in our sails. As awful a morning as I've ever spent in my life.
It's horrible.
It was horrible, and just watching. And really had our eyes on getting a podium, and we're like, we knew that Disco Trooper had won and won well, but we thought Crux was going to catch us from behind, and we thought Salt Shaker was going to get us from ahead, and we were going to end up 4th with a leather medal.
Leather medal.
Leather medal.
Never heard that. So it was pretty disheartening. It was really, really tough. And
you can see Wendy's disheartened in this photo.
No, we still got breeze there. We're still moving. If I never knew, maybe that was the precursor. So it is really tough, and I've been in that situation a long time. I know it's got.
I'm getting anxious talking about it, actually. I'm fully getting anxious. Oh, I'm gonna get a beer.
So it's really tough, and I've been in a race where I was leading for 3 weeks, then sat in a wind hole and watched 7 out of 12 boats over 6 out of 12 boats overtake me. So I know how tough it is. Okay. So we're just talking about drinks here. So it's really tough, but you just got to sort of, knuckle down and just keep going. You've only got another, hopefully 24 hours to go or whatever. So we managed to keep going. And the next morning, this is one of our mascots that lives here. This is Sean the Sheep, everyone. I bought him in Sanya when I was a judge at Miss World, but that's another story. So we managed to keep going, and then all of a sudden the boat's moving, and we can see Rum Rebellion, and they're far ahead, but we can see them, and we've got breeze, and the way the breeze was filling in, it was filling in behind, it was from us, so we had a chance of catching them. So we didn't know if they were still going to beat us on handicap or not, but we still thought we still got a chance. And like anyone who knows me, I'm pretty tenacious. Some people might say stubborn, but I like to say tenacious. I never give up. So we started this yacht race again. And the next day, it was a beautiful morning. So Martha, can you play the first video I sent you today, please? So we'll stop sharing here so Martha can play a video.
So you stop the share.
Oh, I've got to stop sharing. Thank you. We've stopped sharing, Martha, so you can share.
I missed a question.
All good. Just trying to get it started.
Yeah, we're just going to read a question, which is what?
Great to see Sean.
Thanks, Knowles. Thanks, Knowles. Sean. Yeah.
I have a Kermit the Frog, Kermit on Holidays that I was given 20 years ago by a person I'm well out of touch with, but I sent her a picture of him and she was like, that's crazy.
And I had Willie the Whale, who sailed halfway around the world with me on my first lap, I think.
Kermit's done about 30,000 miles offshore with me too.
Yes, thanks, Sean.
I'm sure so a few. So well-travelled stuffed toys.
So in typical Zoom fashion, when I tested this earlier, it worked fine. And now
if it doesn't, I can probably that's all right, we can keep talking. So we woke up in the morning and we've got the sails up. We got the sails up and down, and we got the spinnaker up, and we've probably had about 8 to 7 knots of breeze. And when we've got 7 knots of breeze, we put the smaller spinnaker up, because we put our big whoomper up, the Juju and Co spinnaker, it just doesn't fill. It's too big. So we had the small spinnaker up. And then there's that fine line where you can't be too anxious to go, okay, we're getting 7s and 8s now. Sorry, 7s and 8s. We go to 8s and 9s. We put the big one up. You've got to make sure that breeze is filling in before you put the big one up. Otherwise, you get the big one up.
We also, being on a very tight budget, we bought this big spinnaker, but the 2 other spinnakers we took with us were 15 years old. Here we go. Video.
This video.
Nice. Is this in the? Where's this?
Coming into the doing.
Oh, really?
Oh, we haven't got. Oh, there's no sound.
What sound do you want?
Me talking, so it doesn't matter. So I'm saying here, we're at the entrance of the Derwent. We've got the dolphins. They could have turned up hours ago because the minute the dolphins turn up, we've got breeze. And the water was just so clear. It was just beautiful. So you've got to have a nice fluffy photo. So you can see how much breeze there is on the water there. Not much at all. That's when we got the big kite up. So we just got the big kite up. Dolphins appeared. It's all very lovely. And we're having a lovely, relaxed time. We actually had music playing. We were both doing a bit of a dance. We've got music playing. We've got breeze. It's going to keep filling in. And it was all very fine. We were very
First
happy.
time, yeah, we put music on because it was sort of like, well, we're done now. It is what it is now. We thought Peter got away from us, but we were pushing quite hard to get.
Oh, so this is going to be a shame.
What's wrong? Was that you playing that video?
No. So we've got another video. So yeah, so we started sailing again. We could see we're catching up to Rum Jungle. Rum Rebellion. Sorry, Rum Rebellion.
Rum Rebellion don't have a big spinnaker because they've torn theirs.
They ripped it the day before.
So they're in their small spinnaker, and we're suddenly making big inroads on them. We switched to the big kite. We're coming down and the breeze, being Hobart, just fills in very, very quickly.
So looking at the water, I know there wasn't much you could see on that video, the sound and stuff, but you could see the water was quite still. So we just managed to hold the big kite. So we've got it up in 10 knots is when we normally put it up. So we got up in 10 knots and we saw Rum Rebellion go all the way over to the wrong side of the Derwent. And we're both going, they've gone the wrong side. We need to jive inside them. So we jived inside them. It's like, we're in front of them. Yay, we're really happy because these are the guys that sailed through us the night before and they just smashed through us. Obviously, the breeze is light. We've got a big kite up. They've got a fractional. So they've got their smaller kite up. We've got our big kite. So there's an advantage there. And then we keep going. And we're having a lovely time.
The big kite should come down in about 20 knots.
And then when we go for a jibe, I say, maybe we should just turn the music off through a jibe. So what the standard procedure is in a jibe when there's a bit of breeze is if I'm steering, you saw the dial around my neck before, I push the buttons that say jibe, and then Campbell in the cockpit pushes the instrument that says yes. Then when that's happening, I jump through, I take the sheet off him. As we go through the jibe, I throw the spinnaker sheet off, he pulls the spinnaker sheet on, I throw the main over, then quickly jump back onto the helm and turn it off auto helm because sometimes when it's windy, the boat will keep rounding up, which is not good if you've got a spinnaker on and it wants to go up head to wind. So that was, we mastered that. After the breeze got to about 15 knots, we said, maybe we should just turn the music off now because it's getting a bit hairy now. So we turned the music off and we're going down the Derwent and we're having a fat time. It's awesome. It's all on for young and old. We've got Rum Rebellion just behind us. They've got their smaller chute on, which is probably the right chute to have on. We've got the big chute on.
We think we need to beat Pete Frankie by we think we got about 3 minutes in hand.
Yes.
So we're actually pushing really hard.
We are driving that boat like we stole it because, we thought we had to just beat him by 5 minutes or something.
And much discussion of stay the right side. So that my dad's originally from Hobart, and we've done. We think that was my 13th. We think that was your 13th.
This was my 14th. This one.
Yeah. So we've been in the Derwent many times, and everyone's got an opinion and
where to go.
And the conventional wisdom is do what we did. But we then sail into the middle of the bay before the finish line, and the buttons won't work on the jibe, and so we go an extra 200 meters trying to get it to work. We get it to work. We just make the jibe, and it's suddenly hairy. And we're suddenly at 22 plus knots, and we're right on the limit of the kite.
And we've got to come up.
And we've got to head up to make the finish line because we've overstood.
Because we'd already had a broach when the auto helm failed and we tried to do one jibe. So that's another reason why we're way over, not on the right course.
So we've got to come down because we've overstood. Yeah, we've got to come down. We've got to go deeper.
But at the end, we had to come up. We had to come up for the finish line.
Oh, we didn't.
We had to come up for the finish
line.
Trust me.
Meanwhile, our good friend Nick Douglas from Sailor Girl, who's on the call today.
Hi, Nick.
Turns up, and there is an amazing bit of footage which we'll try and share at some stage.
We've got it here. So hopefully this one will work because this is just the most.
This is Nick Douglas for Adventures of a Sailor Girl. We are back out on the Derwent. It is honking. It's a good 25 knots of smoking sea breeze, and we're about to come alongside Rum Rebellion and also Speedwell to bring them into Hobart. Azuro's just behind. We might just have to wait for Azuro to come into the finish. We're going to spin around here and you'll see just how close these two-handed boats are after, what is it, 626 miles or so? Unbelievable. We're just past John Garrow Light, about a nautical mile and a half to the finish, and they're absolutely smoking. Looking good. So this 34.7 first is actually owned by Campbell's dad, Collin, and Wendy and Campbell did their first ever Hobart together. This is Wendo's 14th Hobart. So she's now done her first and her 14th with Campbell Geeves. Pretty cool. And they're doing it two-handed here, as you can see. It's quite windy. You can see they've got absolutely no tension on that vang. Just riding it on in here. Really muscling the helm. Yeehaw, they are smoking. Wendy was the first female to win a round-the-world ocean race in the Clipper race. She actually won the leg into here, into Hobart. That was the Rolex Sydney Hobart. She's definitely a hero for many. She sailed with Maiden Factor as part of the Tracy Edwards push to raise money for females around the world to support education. And she's now working for the Making Waves Foundation, formerly known as Sailors with Disabilities, which helps underprivileged kids and disabled kids to find new pathways in life and motivation to keep going. So, absolute legend there. They are racing Rum Rebellion into the finish here. They're on a bit of a hotter angle inside. They will have to heat up. They're actually on lay here for the finish line. There's Rum Rebellion over there. Like I said, even after 626 nautical miles, it's on. Yeehaw. They will have to heat up just a little bit, and then they're going to have the challenge of trying to get this spinnaker in before they hit the brake wall. It's going to be tight. I do love the two-handed. It's not about us skipper, it's about co-skippers. And we saw last night as Sidewinder was coming into the finish just how much harder it is for them to do a manoeuvre. And I think it was really well described by the crew from Maverick, Leighton and Rod before the start. They unfortunately had to retire due to a collision with some unidentified object in the water. That essentially the autopilot acts as a third crew member. It's not really an advantage. Whoa, they got a bit of a roll on here. Steady her out, winding that spinnaker on to try and slow the boat down a little bit so they can get back in control. 4 boat lengths. Whoop, whoop, stay with us, Wendo. Good work, Campbell. Look at him, he's on that trim all the time. This is a team effort, guys. Don't think that it's more one person than the other. That's why they're called co-skippers. Campbell Geeves and Wendy Tuck, they were winning on ISC at one stage, but they've held it together nicely, and they will finish as one of just a few two-handed crews that have made the inaugural race for this class. Speedwell, co-skippered by Campbell Geeves, and Wendy Tuck, owned by Collin Geeves, crosses the line in the 76 Rolex Sydney Hobart, going for the letterbox now. Seamless.
Yay, high five that.
Good drop.
Thank you.
Hey Nick, that is, my wife Mel sent a message to Nick, just saying due to all sorts of things, none of my family could make it down to Hobart, and as Mel said to Nick, we will always have that video, and it's such an amazing document of what happened and how we are, and I'm getting teary just talking about it.
Yeah, I think for you guys that sail, you'll understand what I'm going to say, but for you that don't sail, I don't know if you notice the boat rolling. It gets these big rolls up. They're called the death rolls, and it's a real art not to wipe out when you do that. The boat can go one way where the boom swings across the wrong way and it's complete carnage, or you can turn the boat up into the wind, which is just as bad. So there's this art when you're steering with your trimmer, which that's what Campbell was doing, because he's much quicker at grinding the sail in and letting it out, is when the boat rolls one way. And what most people do the wrong thing is they steer the opposite way of the boat rolling. Oh, look, we're rolling this way. I'm going to steer the opposite way to try and get it back under control. I guess it's like going through a corner when you're sliding, steer into the slide. So the way the boat rolls, you steer that way, and then you'll get the rudder back in the water so you can actually get control of the boat. So as we're doing that coming downwind there, it was one of the most heart-stopping race finishes I've ever done. And I'll be eternally thankful to Nick Douglas as well, because it's just the most awesome footage. And I think part of it you don't get on video and stuff unless you're actually there. You don't see it, you don't hear the noise. We're on a small boat, it's incredibly noisy still.
In answer to Jerry, we hit 13.5 knots at one stage in that, which is about 3.5 knots more than it should be doing. And I think we're doing 12 twos when we cross the line. And that boat really has not gone over 10 knots very often in its life. Our top speed for the race was 16.1. We did
Which Campbell did.
I did that twice in like half an hour offshore on a seaway, rolling down waves. That was flat water. The big thing about that was we were in 15 knots 10 minutes earlier, and it caught us by surprise. We didn't realise until just watching that. We didn't realise until watching that then that we didn't have the spinnaker at full hoist. I was just saying to Wendy in the middle of that, I'm not sure what we had done if we had a notice. So we'd have gone, here, can you just hold this sheet while I just wind that spinnaker up? We were pretty much on a lot on. The big point, the big punchline of that is we beat Pete Frankie and Drew on Salt Shaker by 15 minutes. And if we had a wiped out in that sequence, that would have probably cost us 15 minutes to get the boat back on its feet, if not more.
Yeah, exactly.
So we really were on the edge, and Wendy's driving is very, very good. And there's not that many people I know that could have driven us over the line. Then it was pretty epic.
It was pretty, but the part, I'm really glad that Nick captured the spinnaker coming down as well, because getting the spinnaker up, that's fine. You can sail, rah-de-rah. Getting it down is incredibly tough, especially when there's only two of you on a boat and you've got a massive big spinnaker and you've got 25 knots of breeze behind you. So I don't know if you saw the video where as soon as we crossed the line, I'm going, Campbell, let's drop it now before the line. And Campbell's like, no, because we thought Pete Frankie was 3 minutes ahead of us. I'm going, Campbell, I'm going to wipe out. There's only a matter of time before we're going to wipe out. He said, no, keep it up. So we talked about it the whole way down that last leg, that last spinnaker run, how we're getting the kite done. And the times we've had stuff ups on the boat is when we don't stick to our plan. So the plan was we crossed the line, I let go of one rope, which is the tack line, which is the front corner of the sail, which then blows up into the air, which takes the pressure off it. Campbell starts gathering that in. Once I can see he's got it under control, I start letting the halyard down, which is what's attached to the top of the sail. So the top of the sail starts coming down. So we talked about the timing, when to do it and stuff, and it just was textbook. And
that's not important. What's important is this is the moment we all start crying.
Then what you don't capture on the video before I show this one is it's a very short runway after the finish line. There's a seawall not too far straight ahead of you. So when you're tearing down on a spinnaker, on big boats you've got 20 people to get the spinnaker in. On a small boat you don't. If we stuff it up, we go head first into a seawall. So, and then all our friends were over on this, behind this ferry here, sitting there watching, waiting. So it's like, we can't stuff this up, Campbell. We have to get this down perfect, which it just worked perfectly. I think because the adrenaline was so pumping, because we had such a chilled out morning, then the breeze build, then we saw the dolphins, we had the tunes on, then it kept building. Then it's like, turn the music off, let's concentrate now.
Let's watch our little entry video.
So when you arrive in Hobart, I don't know if there's anyone here that's done it, Hobart, when you arrive, they normally have, before COVID times, a Taste of Tassie, which has thousands of people along the big sea pier there, getting drunk, eating food. This year it's called the Taste of Summer, so not quite as many people, but still pretty good. So, that's it. And then we come in. So on that corner was all our friends that could be in Hobart. Other two hands had already finished. So as we arrived, this is what we were greeted by. And then very shortly after, this is the typical Hobart finish, that we went and jumped on Pete Frankie's boat, dude here in the Hawaiian shirt. So him and Drew, his sailing partner's not there, but their wives are there. This is the guys that won. So this is Jules and Clogs who won. These are the guys that we raced to the finish. These are random friends. So it's just this really tight-knit group. And they all went out for dinner on New Year's Eve. I'm going, I can't do that. I can't sit down after that race and sit down and have a dinner. So, and that was the nicest part about the finish. That's us just there. That's Pete there. Clogs and Jules are a bit further down, so we're all close together, and it's just that camaraderie.
That's
just
our vow to say.
incredible. Number 27, because I made us have number 27 because that's my lucky number. So that's us, number 27. So when we got in, friends are there, tears are flowing. My friends bought champagne, which was awesome. There was lots of champagne flowing, and it was just incredible. But in all the races I've done, that will go down as one of the most awesome finishes ever. And I've done a lot of yacht racing.
For me, definitely the most emotional. My whole family, my mum and my dad and my wife were all going to be there, and in the week before Christmas, none of them were able to make it. So suddenly I'm on the phone, and it's a lot. But my aunt was there, which was pretty funny. And so many friends came, and it was amazing because we're a day late, and we've spent 13 hours sitting in Storm Bay. I don't know if we talked about that enough, about how horrible it was, how long we were there for. Kate, who's just here on this corner.
So sorry, Jerry's question was by text, who sailed the boat back? So Kate here, she came down and helped us. So
and me and Wendy.
I got off at Eden though to visit family.
And we had a really good trip back. That's pretty much, hey, we've done Hobart, clear.
I think for us, when we finish, it's just to finish. And the really kicker here is when we finished, everyone was saying we came second. So we're like, oh my God, we've come second, because Crux, who eventually came second, was so far behind, they would have need to keep wind all the way to the finish, which they did. So when we're going past the Taste of Tassie, we go, yeah, we got second, because that's what the race committee had told us, we were second, and they announced us because they announced you as you go do your lap of honour, and they're going, oh, they've come second. We go, woohoo! Which we came third, which is okay. Second would be nice, but we're still happy. So
Kathy's just asked how we did food. Earlier, I'm trying not to get emotional. So early on, I took the Beneteau had a 4-burner stove with an oven, and I was like the weight Nazi, and took it off and put in a zip hydroboil. No, sorry, not a zip, a little.
It's called a hydroboil, isn't it?
No, it's like a jet boil. Little jet boil stove. And Dad built the most fantastic handmade gimbal thing that worked really well, where he bought like a gimbaled cup holder from Whitworth's, and then put a counterweight on it, and he just spent ages on it. It's a fantastic thing. So we had freeze dried. Mel, my wife, did a whole lot of food, keeping in mind Wendo's veggie. And we took it down to a friend's restaurant down the road, and we cryovacked it. So, and then it has a fridge, but we just put frozen water bottles in the fridge, and then had the food on top of that, and then drinks. We live on 300 ml cans of mineral water is our big vice. I guess vice is what you'd say. They're really really easy just to crack and smash one rather than refilling water bottles. So with those, and it worked really well. Neither of us drink tea or coffee particularly. Wendy doesn't drink hot drinks at all. I'd like to have a coffee, but I can't be asked. So we don't do hot drinks. We just, the jet boil thing will boil a litre of water in about a minute and a half, which is pretty amazing.
So what you can do, you're rambling. So what you can do, so Mel made a whole lot of nice meals like macaroni cheese and stuff that you jet boil the water, put your cryovac meal in, and then a minute later you let it sit there for a bit, then you can eat it. With the freeze dried, you just boil the water, then pour it into the packet itself. It sits there for 10 minutes or so, then you eat it out the pack. So really minimal. Like, I'm not fussed about food when I'm sailing. I just want to keep going fast. And in all honesty, I live on chocolate and chips anyhow, so I don't care.
Yeah, for me, Cliff Bars were really good. We didn't do food particularly well, as in we were fed and we were good, but I think it's something we need to look at moving forward. Yeah,
energy. But we survived, so we're pretty happy. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it's only 5 days. I think you can survive with pretty much nothing for 5. You need fuel, but you can survive. Like I do eat quite healthily. I know that might surprise people, but I do eat quite healthily. So to be on a boat, and I know I do now. I've changed. 20 years ago, I never. Now I do. But to survive for 5 days, you can sort of squeeze through not being the most healthy person and stuff. But we get there. So the next slide I want to show is there was a prize giving just for the two-handers the next day.
Because we missed we were so slow, we missed the prize giving. It's the slowest race ever, 5 days.
And the funny thing about this, anyone who knows me, is I have never been late for anything in my life, ever. Never been late for anything. When I worked for Sir Robin Knox-Johnson, his favourite saying is 10 minutes early is 15 minutes late. And that's me. I arrive places like stupidly early and hide somewhere so people don't see that I'm there waiting. It's really embarrassing.
For me, 10 minutes early is 20 minutes wasted.
Yeah. So the day of the prize giving, which was at 2:00, I went and had lunch with Kate here. We went and had lunch at the Taste of Tassie, or whatever it's called now. And then I'm going, Kate, I better go, because she was still in. I said, I better go because the prize giving's in 10 minutes. So I'm walking there, I'm getting all these texts saying, where are you? I'm going, I'm on the way. And I got there. I had to run to make it in time for the prize giving because my watch, the battery had gone flat and my watch was 10 minutes late. So I just virtually whipped in there and we got our trophy, which we're pretty happy about. So, oops, what's happening here?
You're not screen sharing.
I'm not sharing. No, I am sharing. That's frozen. Sorry, guys, we just got a technical issue here. Oh, there we go. So there's our, oops. Now it's gone too, sorry, it's gone a bit slow. So I'll go back a bit and hopefully.
Don't touch him.
No, that's wrong now. So hold on, we just jumped ahead. But if you don't see our trophy, that's okay. It's only a trophy. There we go. So there's our trophies. Oh no, now we're going to go back 5,000 times. Yeah, so I'm going to keep going back now because I got impatient with swipe. Sorry. Hopefully, sorry guys. It's where I live in Elizabeth Bay, and you think I'd have really good internet, but I've got the world's worst internet in Elizabeth Bay. I think I'm going to be caught up now, so let's just run one swipe. There we go. So there's our trophy. So there's our third place, two-handed IRC.
And it's made of hue and pine and smells amazing.
It does smell amazing. And I think for me personally, that's when it really hit that we did okay, that we got this trophy. And it's like, you know what, we've history.
Wasn't our plan when we started to get a trophy. It was to finish. Our plan when we started was to finish.
And then we had to get home.
That's a good point. Jerry O'Connor would like to know how we can drive a nav system when we can't drive the slideshow.
That pretty much sums it all up, Jerry. We can't drive nothing. No, Campbell did the weather and all that sort of stuff, which was nice for a change. So I normally do that, and it was awesome not to have to worry about anything like that. So then we did the delivery home. As we said, it was pretty. We had a nice delivery. Took a while, but I got off in Eden to visit my family, and Mel, Campbell's wife, started the Speedies coming home WhatsApp group because we like WhatsApp. So this is Speedy coming in through the heads. We're pretty excited. And then this is Campbell seeing his wife for the first time in how long?
No, way too long. 2 weeks.
Well, 2 weeks. And at the end of the day, this is my favourite photo coming up because we couldn't have done it without this. I'm getting teary now. Couldn't have done it without this man. We gave him the trophy because it's Collin's trophy. So that's at midnight on Sunday night.
It's still in the middle of his living room in front of the TV, and it's there until my mum tells him to put it away. And it's still there a month later.
So that's
he's immensely proud of what we've achieved, which is probably the best part of the whole thing for me.
That's cool. And you know what? You spend 80 grand, because I reckon, no, we probably spend about 70 grand, do you reckon? 70 grand to get the boat ready. That's what you get, that little wooden trophy. That's pretty cool. Thanks, Nick.
But it smells amazing. Guys, lots of people are sending really lovely messages saying they really appreciate it.
And you know what's really nice? Collin is Tasmanian, so to have a Tasmanian hue and pine trophy in his house from Tassie, he's pretty happy.
Half his house is hue and pine, to be fair.
Oh, is it?
It's everything's
it's
all full of bowls and bits and bobs.
I've house sat the bottom and I didn't know that.
That's all.
So
that's it.
That's it, guys.
We made it.
We made it. Boat's back safely. Now we've got to think of the next challenge.
We broke the car. There's the last story I'll say. In the middle of Storm Bay, Wendy kicked the key that starts the engine, and it had a little rubber float on it, and the rubber float broke off.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to say second fight we had. We had 2 fights. Well, not 2 fights, 2 arguments. So all the way down, before we did the race, we had to do rat tests and COVID tests and all that sort of stuff. And then you had to send all your results through to TasPorts and stuff. And for some reason, they didn't receive my email. So halfway through the race, Campbell's going, we're going to get disqualified because they haven't got your COVID certificate, your vaccination certificate.
I didn't say that. We're not going to. I said I've just had an email saying we're getting disqualified because you haven't sent your stuff through.
Yeah, that's what he said. And he did that 2 times to me, one day, then the next day, but I did. And it's like, oh, same joke. It's like, yeah, okay, I fell for it. So
absolutely fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
2 times.
But I've sent it through. I've sent it through. What are you talking about? I sent it through. I sent it through. Are you kidding me? I sent it through.
Whenever we're sleep deprived. And then the next day when I'm gone, how dare he play that joke on me and how stupid am I to fall for it? When I crossed my legs, I was staring across my leg and that's when I broke the float, the key ring float. So not the key, but just the key ring. And I've yelled down, Campbell, I've just broken something. We can't finish the race. This is a deal breaker. And I said, I broke the key ring. And boy, he was angry. It's like, hold on, you've been playing trick on me for 2 days and I've done it back to you. And he was Mr. Angry Pants.
So worse than that, that was pretty good actually. Worse than that, I sent a photo of the busted keyring to Mel, my wife, and Collin, my dad. Sent a photo and it said, major breakage, we may not finish. And we're in Storm Bay, so we're 30 miles from the end with a picture
of the keyring.
We were not in 4G and the picture did not go through. So all they got was a message saying major breakage, we may not finish. And then I put my phone down and didn't go back to it for half an hour. And the pair of them had a meltdown. And we're calling each other and we're like, what? And then I realised and sent all these messages that they didn't get. And Mel finally called and I was like, oh no. Anyhow, they've forgiven us.
They have. I gave him a key ring that I had with a float on it that I had kicking around the house, so we're all good. So that's our Hobart story, guys. And I hope Kathy and Bridget, I don't know if Bridget knows it, Kathy, you're going to ask Bridget to do two-handed with you this year, but I hope we've inspired you guys to get out there. Hi, Emma, I just saw you there. I hope we've inspired you guys to get out there, and hopefully Bridget and Kathy, you're going to be in that two-handed nice little group. We can add you to our WhatsApp group and share information.
You're like the lady on Romper Room.
Oh yeah,
saying hello to all the little kids. I can see you there. Hello, Cheryl.
Well, I just saw Emma come in. I saw Marcia but I can only see 6 squares.
Hey guys, do you want to ask some other questions? Ask us questions, and we'll brief.
Stop sharing so we can see everyone now as well.
Sure, and we'll be brief, I promise.
Yeah, so if you've got any questions, please just fire away. I don't care if you want to text them through the chat there or just ask. I'm happy for rowdy yelling questions. You scared everyone.
Yeah, fair enough.
Come on, someone must have a question. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see. I can't see. Come on, guys, there must be a question somewhere.
Okay, well, I'm just super happy I now know why that brooch happened, though I thought it was Rum Rebellion until I got a bit closer. I saw it happen from a distance. So, so that was your autopilot.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I just jumped over. So
we didn't brooch, we saved it. We saved it. I don't know how we saved it. We could have been on here for half an hour.
There was a few swear words.
Did you blame Ollie? Like, did you ring him and say that was your fault? We'll come in and you ruined our glamour finish, or?
No, because that was before you started filming, so no one saw that, so that was okay. So
Jerry's just asked, was the Spinnaker an asymptote pole? Jerry, our in IRC, yes, it's an asymmetrical. In IRC, you can't run both. The boats traditionally run S2 running Spinnakers with a pole. Our earlier IRC previous year, we ran both and we got punished for it. They then changed the rules. So we took on IRC handicap, they changed the rules. So we took a pole and we're allowed to pole out a jib if it's heavy air downwind without punishments. They've changed the rule of this year. So we're asymmetrical only. In hindsight, I reckon offshore racing, we'd probably, if we were doing it all again with no budget, we'd probably go symmetrical Spinnakers because we do better on handicap and the boat does want to go square downwind. However, I mean, makes driving a lot more technical, but I think we're probably good enough we could deal with that. But it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Nolene and Russell, go window.
So I've just got the question here. Where's Nolene Russell? When are you preparing to start? Oh, look, we're talking.
We never finished.
The question from Nolene Russell was, when are we going to start preparing 2022? It's like straight away. But I said to Cam, I'd like to do it on a boat that doesn't, that's designed to race offshore. So obviously we've got to find sponsorship, but to have a boat that's just built to race offshore, that's built to race two-handed. With our boat, if we stood behind the wheel and you had to come forward, you had to jump over a whole lot of stuff and squeeze through stuff, whereas a two-handed boat, you can just walk through from behind the helm forward and stuff. So there's a whole lot of different things. So if I do it again, well, no, not if, I love two-handed sailing. I really like sailing with Campbell.
I'd like to do it on foiling a Mocha 60, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'd like
so
to
we're going to do another one on Speedwell is the answer.
Probably, yeah. Or I really would like to do it on a boat that's purpose-built for two-handed racing, though, to make it a bit easier.
So
Figaro, yeah.
I'm just looking at you, Mark Thompson, Mark Clement, and Susie. If one of you could buy us a $400,000 boat, that'd be great. And we'll give it back to you in one piece, like we gave back Speedwell.
We do that. And Andre's asked, is two-handed here to stay? Absolutely, two-handed's here to stay. It's huge around the rest of the world. What we're now talking about in our little two-handed group, it's not little anymore, our WhatsApp unofficial group, is there's different yacht clubs racing two-handed, and we decided, why don't we just pick the best races and make our own little offshore race, our own little series. So instead of doing every single race that the CYC wants to do, and there's RPA up in Pittwater, why don't we go, okay, that's a really good race, this is a really good race, that's a really good race, let's just do those 3 races and make our own little series. Who cares about winning an official series from a yacht club? Let's just see what happens and works. And that's what they do in the UK. They have lots of different yacht clubs that say, okay, we'll run 2 races, you run 1 race, and they all work together. Whereas this Saturday, the CYC had a race going down to Wollongong, RPA up in Pittwater had a race going up to Newcastle. So they're competing. The fleet is still quite small, but I think it's going to grow.
We're working on getting that under control.
Yeah, and even though it's not going to be in 2024 Olympics, that was just who cares, So yes, I think it's here to stay because it's so much fun. Everything you do is down to you.
Kathy Veals asked if we're going to go on a Figaro. Probably not. Figaros were made to be one design, so they work. They don't rate under IRC, which is the handicap system we go under. So there is one in Australia, and a really good friend of mine raced it on the weekend, and they had a blast. But it does so badly under the handicap system, you probably wouldn't do a Figaro. I'd get a JPK 1040 if money was no object, or a 1080, or we look at anything. But
anything
nice
that's designed for charity. Would you do two-handed race overseas? Absolutely.
For sure.
You want to go race against people that've been doing it for a long time.
I'd love to go race the Frenchies. I'd love to go do a fast net.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing.
Yeah, so definitely. But it's just like I've raced big crews, I've raced small crews, and now I've raced two-handed. It's just, I don't know. It's really cool.
It's really hard.
It's
work.
really hard to.
It's so hard work, but it feels great when you finish.
Yeah, and it's hard to describe. I think we're lucky because we're very, very different people, but we get on, as you can see, really, really well. Because I'm the funny one, and Campbell just thinks he's the funny one, but I am the funny one. So I think because we get on so well.
So were you guys motivated to do two-handed because it was potentially going to be Olympic, or was it separate? Obviously, it's a beautiful combination. So then my question is, would you like it to go to Olympic, or do you want it to not be Olympic? What do you think is better?
It's not going to go to Olympic in our time. I think we were motivated because we realised that it would get the class started.
Yeah.
I think we both felt we're probably a little bit old for that.
Yeah. And it was the catch for us. It's like in the first stuff, when we first announced we're going to do two-handed, it was like, because there's the 2024 Olympics, knowing that we'd never make it and we'd never get there, or maybe we could have, but who knows. But that was just the catalyst. That was the catalyst.
And also the catalyst to sponsorship. For us, it was like, suddenly there's been noise about it, so we can piggyback off that. I mean, we would have, I don't know how they would have selected, because how do you select our 20-year-old boat versus a brand, like there was guys in Melbourne with brand new $450,000 boats running a program, and I'm glad we didn't come up against them on the start line, because they probably would have smoked us, but who knows. But we're also pretty bloody good ourselves, so who knows. But I would love to go and do some racing in Europe against the Frenchies and just figure out how. I mean, you got to remember, the French have like single-handed schools where they just race day in, day out for 3 or 4 months against each other all day, single-handed.
Yeah.
That's going to put your skill set well above where we're at.
Yeah.
Having said that, you can always go the right way, and Wendy driving downhill offshore in heavy air is as good as anyone I've ever sailed with, and I've sailed with a lot of pros.
Thank you.
No, it's true. But I've sailed with I've sailed with many Olympic sailors and many really good offshore sailors, and Wendy's as good as they come. offshore driving heavy air, which is the skill set you want, right? So who knows? Anyhow, we're not going to the Olympics because I'm against capitalism and corporate something or other. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Have we got any more questions? No, we're good. We're going to the pub. Let's go to the pub.
No, I'm not going to pub. I'm not drinking in February.
I would 100% endorse a reality TV show of the Wendy and Campbell show. Like, you should have your own talk show. This has just been
Agreed.
absolutely fantastic.
When you came up as MWF, I was like, MAFS is on here? What the hell?
That's right. We're here to recruit for the latest reality TV show. No, everyone's gonna know from now on. MWF is not MAFS, it's Making Waves Foundation.
Nick Douglas is going to produce the Fly on the Wall documentary.
I'm ready. I'm so ready. I think
It would be the perfect combination.
Just on a side note, if anybody is listening who does have sponsorship dollars, a JPK would be a great boat for these two. I've sailed an 1180 and 1140 and a 1040, and they're beautiful boats. Yes.
And we can come do corporate talks. How amusing would that be?
Corporate talks and corporate sales. We're corporate.
I will film it all.
But no, it was
Go
fun.
capitalism. We're corporate.
Go Sean.
Go Sean.
Well, but thank you, everyone. And thank you for the guys that actually signed up to listen and donate to Making Waves. We did our first program today. We had to cancel this morning's one because it was too rainy for the children, but we went out with adults this afternoon. And it was my first time skippering as on one of the programs, and it's absolutely awesome. I volunteered years and years ago. I've done a couple of programs since then, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's really, really cool. It's really cool. So if you don't know much about Making Waves, go and have a look at our website and stuff, and come and volunteer or chuck some money their way. It's really, really lovely.
So in summary, Collin gave us the boat.
Yay, go on.
Sponsors helped us. We went for a yacht. It rained. We got wet. The wind stopped. Sean talked to Kermit. The wind came back in. We finished. We went to the pub. Came home. Thanks, everybody.
That's pretty much it.
We're still friends.
Yeah.
That's probably the big one, isn't it?
That's probably the big one, isn't it?
You want to go again?
Didn't hurt the boat.
We didn't hurt the boat.
Didn't hurt the boat. We're still friends.
We didn't rip a sail. We didn't hurt the boat. We're still friends, which is
Except for the key ring.
Really cool.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Making Waves Foundation, we would like to say a massive thank you to you both, Wendy and Campbell, for giving your time to share this incredible story with us. We are so privileged to have you both as part of our Making Waves family, and really on behalf of everyone that got to listen in on your fantastic adventure, thank you so much. That was better than I expected, that story.
Hey, keep your expectations low. If you keep your expectations low, we'll always succeed them. Thanks everyone for putting up with our rambling. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, because we do ramble.
Thank you both. Congratulations again.
On the water very soon.
See you on the water.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick Douglas, for your wonderful footage.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
No, I'm just inspired by you legends. Don't worry about that. Awesome to have been there. Well done.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
See you later.